We never, ever, ever said it was real, but we always tried to keep it out there that maybe it was real. We just set out to try and make the scariest movie we possibly could, and we didn't have any money.
Joe Whitlow, I didn't talk.
Let me tell you. That's what I said.
Hey guys, thank you so much for coming out and seeing the movie. It's really fantastic. I just want to say a couple of things that were really personal to me, and then I'll take a few questions, and then we'll go straight to the movie because it's late. I met a guy named Greg that I'd gone to film school, that I'd be really friendly with in film school, but he had this movie that he wanted to make called The Woods Movie, and he showed me this videotape that had basically still photographs that were fake still photographs, and it was a 5-minute tape, and I watched these still photographs and I was like, fuck, that's really cool. And he said, I said, when's this footage come available? You really have this footage? And he said, well, if you help me raise the money, we could actually make it. And right from that moment, we never, ever, ever said it was real, but we always tried to keep it out there that maybe it was real. And that was the very, very beginning of BLAIR. The guys that, while they were at UCF, Dan and Ed, had come up with this story called The Woods Movie. And from that moment, it was basically 2 years. I quit everything else I was doing. We all bought a house well, we didn't buy the house, we were renting the house downtown. And we pulled everything that we possibly had and spent every dime that we had. When we got accepted to Sundance, we had a big drum circle and went crazy and just insanely happy. And then we went to Sundance, but by the time we went to Sundance, literally we got our power turned off. Ed and Dan had their water and power turned off that day that we left for Sundance. And then it was, a trip to Surrealville, kind of from that point on. But the whole way through, not only the ENZIAN, which were fantastic. I mean, the first cut was screened here. John Pearson at the Florida Film Festival saw that same tape that I saw and actually gave us $10,000 that went into making the final film, because Dan was his cameraman shooting his TV show that he had. It was called Split Screen. It was an independent film television show. So he gave us money because we met him here at the Florida Film Festival. Then we screened the film here. It was the 2.5-hour cut that we did test screenings, and then the final version of the movie was actually screened here. So not only has the ENZIAN been really, really supportive of us, but the film community here in Orlando has been freaking amazing. And we did a television series here, we did another movie here, and it's just really cool that UCF is fantastic, and Valencia is fantastic, and Full Sail is fantastic. There really is a cool little film community here, and they've been very supportive of us all the way through. And a lot of the guys that I work with in LA, they all came from here. So anyway, it's been very personal for us, and I'm very, very happy to be here, and really appreciate you guys coming out to support 10 years later. What was just, we just set out to try and make the scariest movie we possibly could, and we didn't have any money. So that's the result. So a couple of questions. Anything you ever wanted to ask? Yeah.
What's your favorite scene in the movie?
The first thing I ever saw, because what we did, we shot this over 8 days. We had 2 directors, and one director would be basically hiding, and the other director would be watching videotapes. And the actors had GPSs. So over those 8 days, they would have to be, okay, I gotta be here, then we gotta walk over here and here and here, and they had baskets that they would put the footage in, get the batteries out. So we were not actually like on set, so to speak. So the first footage that I ever saw of the Blair Witch is the confession scene, where when Heather basically, the snot scene, the big snot scene. And so consequently, that's always been my favorite scene, because when I saw that, I was like, wow, I think we got something. This might work. So that was my favorite scene. Another question. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know what inspired the concept of the Blair Witch?
Yeah, it was kind of a combination of two things. I mean, definitely the TV series In Search Of was something that had a big impact on Dan and Ed, and in film school we talked about that, and so just those kinds of films were really inspirational. But then Greg Hale, who's the other producer, he'd been in the Special Forces, and part of the Special Forces things is in the middle of your training, they come in and they grab you, and they take you and they imprison you, and basically for 5 days they torture the hell out of you. And they don't break any bones or anything like that, but they come pretty close. So, we were trying to figure out how we were going to do this, because originally the film was supposed to be shot traditional 16 millimeter, the whole thing, but we didn't have enough money. So Greg said, well, what if we tortured the actors like I got tortured, and we let them shoot their torture. And that was kind of the melding of those two worlds, that real, trying to be as realistic as we possibly could, and then still controlling the situation was kind of the, all right. Another question? Anyone? Yeah, in the back. Yes, ma'am. The question is, why was Burkittsville chosen? Ed is from Maryland. He grew up there. He went to high school there. He went to college there. And Burkittsville was just a town that was close to where Ed lived. And we shot the film in Seneca State Park in Maryland. And so it was there. And there was some mythology. I mean, we all of the mythology behind the film we created, but there was some stuff about Burkittsville. There was a kind of a legend there that was semi, so we kind of took advantage of that. But really, it was just because it was convenient. Okay, one last question. Last question. Anyone? Why did we not show the witch? It was so much, the end of the film was something that is the only thing that when we sold it at Sundance, the studio asked us to go back and reshoot the end. And that was the last thing we wanted to do on the planet. However, they hadn't paid us yet, and they were prepared to pay us to do reshoots. So we actually shot like 9 or 10 different endings to the film that exist out there, but they were never going to be used, and they just totally didn't work. I mean, for us, Blair was always about the psychological journey that Heather and these two other guys took. And so it was never about seeing the witch. It was always about what was going on with them in the reality of their world. And we always felt that it was more important as to what you guys thought was the witch was about than anything else. So we tried to set it up for audience participation. Anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for coming. I really hope you enjoy seeing the film. We've done a screening of this in Los Angeles and in New York, and I'm going to London in November to do it, and Orlando. So really appreciate you guys doing it, because that's it. That's the kind of special screening. So thank you for being here tonight. Really, thank you.